Hello, lovely people. Today I want to tell you a story about how to gracefully deal with negative emotions and responses coming our way, including those from our very own inner critic. Now, last week, after a very long and busy but fruitful day, I was invited by some people for a drink. My practice is in the center of a very small rural village with a couple of doors down, a local cafe, which has its terrace on the other side of the road, almost opposite my practice. And with the strict lockdown rules slowly loosening up, we are now allowed to enjoy each other's company there again and the gorgeous weather we've been having lately. So needless to say, the terrace was packed. The waitress was run off her feet, having to also cross the road. Now in our company there was a gentleman that I had only recently met. Apparently quite well to do and a bit used to getting his own way. When our drinks were finished, he started shouting the waitress's name very loudly and at least 5 times. In order to tone him down a little bit, I politely asked him to lower his voice, saying she had probably already heard us and would come as soon as she was able to. His response was what I can only describe as a form of barely controlled anger. He told me quite aggressively to never, ever speak to him like that again, or else, and then went into detail of what that else might entail. Now, years ago, I would have gone into my automatic pilot behavior, which is, in my case, become explanatory defensive. But of course, as a sophrologist and mindfulness practitioner, I have been training myself to better manage my behavioral responses and to observe. Now this gives me time, even when it's merely a split second, to choose how I respond to whatever comes my way. Why I want to respond, or why not, and what that response will get me as a result or as a consequence. In this case, my answer was, okay, noted. When I got up to go home about 15 minutes later and walked past the man, he beckoned me. To my surprise, he wanted to compliment me with the way I had handled him, because as he said, he had not been very nice to me. I answered that I had not even noticed this, that I had only seen someone express his sentiments in his own way, and that I had taken a mental note, because it was up to me whether I wanted my being and my good mood to be impacted by this. In that moment, I saw a little light bulb go on in his mind through the expression in his eyes. And the silence around the table made me feel that the others also took a mental note in that moment. Moral of the story: it is not always necessary to respond. Sometimes just acknowledging someone else's feelings is enough. Now, what does this have to do with our inner critic? That inner voice of us that judges and criticizes or demeans us, even when objectively this is totally unjustified. The voice that has its root in insecurity and fear of not being smart, pretty, respected, or well liked enough. That voice that stops us from opening up to our potential and stops us from seeing potential opportunities for improvement, change, and growth. This inner critic of ours is created and shaped throughout our lives from the painfully early life experience that we had, and by the way that we are spoken to in our childhood, in our young adulthood, but also throughout our lives. That we personify this voice into a sort of sub-personality is also the key to recognizing and manage or silence it. We can treat our inner critic with the negative talk, in this case negative self-talk, like any other person expressing his negative emotions towards us. Negative emotions like fear or anger or insecurity or guilt. These feelings just want to be heard and validated. So take a mental note and say, thank you for sharing. And then take a step back. Go up into what I call our little observer helicopter, or should I say drone nowadays, and decide whether you want to act upon them or not. And if you do want to act upon your feelings or your emotions, what kind of outcome would be best for you? Now, am I perfectly in control of my behavior and responses all the time? No, of course not. I am only human, and depending on how strongly I get triggered, how important, because of history, by the negative directed towards me, I sometimes do react in a way that I think could have been better if I had just waited and reflected a little while longer. But hey, practice makes perfect. And I can tell you that there is more calm, more peace of mind, and way less stress in your life when you become more observant of your emotions, and when your responses are a little bit less like this leaf being uncontrollably swept away by a gust of wind that is called our feelings. See you next time.